the study of biblical theology is the idea of tracing the development of a topic or theme from the Old Testament into the New Testament. Okay, a couple of weeks ago I showed how Babylon, which symbolises sin and wickedness throughout the Bible, is seen in the book of Genesis with the Tower of Babel, spoken about in the book of Zechariah with regards to the woman in the basket, and is described in the book of Revelation as the great city that falls following the death and resurrection of Jesus. On Monday, we thought about the land that God promised his people and how through power and force God is taking back the land that was lost during the exile. Well, today we'll see how the acquisition of land comes in the most unexpected way, which will also help us to consider the biblically theological image of the king riding on a donkey. Zechariah 9 verse 9. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, or having been saved, lowly or afflicted, and riding on a donkey, on the colt, the foal of a donkey. I will take away the chariots from Ephraim and the war horses from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be broken. He will proclaim peace to the nations. His rule will extend from the sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. Now, I included the alternate translations there because although the NIV is not wrong, it can be a little misleading when we understand the context of the passage, in that the image of a king riding a donkey is not an image of victory. You know, a king on a chariot or a king on a war horse depicts victory, but a king on a donkey speaks of lowliness, or better still, affliction and suffering. And the king in Zechariah is saved by God, and victory is won, which is why we read about the battle bow being broken and the chariots and war horses being taken away. However, the peace that now reigns has come through suffering. A victory has been won, but it was won through affliction. Okay, now it's that image that is kind of captured when Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey. Right, in John chapter 12, verse 12. The next day, the great crowd that had come for the festival heard that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. They took palm branches and went to him, meet him, shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. And Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, Do not be afraid, daughter Zion. See, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt. At first, his disciples did not understand all this. Only after Jesus was glorified did they realize that these things had been written about him and that these things had been done to him. Okay, so the Gospels make clear that Jesus is the fulfillment of the victorious king that Zechariah spoke about, because it was only after his death on the cross and his resurrection that the disciples understood the symbolism of Jesus riding on the colt of a donkey. It was only after Jesus endured affliction on behalf of the disciples and us that they then understood the context of Zechariah and how victory over sin and death was achieved through suffering. And so when we consider the king on the donkey that Zechariah wrote about, and then Jesus on the donkey with the disciples quoting Zechariah, we see biblical theology in practice. We see the theme of victory through suffering flow from the Old Testament through to Jesus in the New Testament, and then through Jesus to us today. 1 Peter 4 verse 12. Dear friends, do not be surprised when the fiery ordeal comes among you to test you, as if something unusual were happening to you. Instead, rejoice as you share in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may also rejoice with great joy when his glory is revealed. Friends, take a couple of minutes to consider what suffering for Jesus looks like in your life. And then pray and thank God that Jesus' suffering has enabled us to have eternal life.